This is part 13 of the Craftsman Emerson Gen 2 Drill Press Rebuild series. If you haven't seen part 12, click the link at the top of the screen. In this video, we will assemble the drill press. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff and welcome to my shop. We got a lot to cover, so let's get to it. First thing we're going to be doing is lubricating the base, and we'll be using Super Lube for that. So we've got the base lock shoe, and we're just going to coat that in Super Lube. And then we'll insert it in, and then we're going to lubricate that large set screw and insert it, and then lubricate the 3 bores for the column. And then we'll insert the column. It's going to go all the way to the concrete. And then we'll tighten down that set screw, loosen it up a little, and then lift the column about 1/8 of an inch. And then lock it in place. We don't want the column to actually rest on the concrete or on the floor. We want it to stop at that bottom bore in the base. And that'll cut down on the amount of rust that the column will get over time. Next, we're going to install the lower column clamp. So starting with the Gen 2 Emersons, all of them came with 2 column clamps. We put one below where the table is going to be mounted, and then we put one below the head. So we'll go ahead and slide the table on, let it rest on that column clamp, line everything up. Next, we're going to be installing the table lock, and we're going to lube all of these parts. So we've got the lock nut, which will have 2 flats on it. One of those flats needs to engage the column. It gets inserted from the underside. And then we've got the lock handle with the screw on it, and then the lock sleeve, which has 1 flat, and it'll engage the column on the other side. Tighten it all down, clean up. Next, we're going to install the upper column clamp. Now, if you measure the height of the inside at the bores of the head, then you'll get an idea of where to put this clamp. I think it was 6 1/4 inches, but that's where I set it. That way, when we install the head, it'll be already at the proper height that it's supposed to be. We'll line everything up again. And then we'll be doing the lubricating and installing of the head lock, which is exactly the same process that we used for the table lock, except the lock handle needs to be on the left side. Doesn't have to be, but that's where it's supposed to go, and that's where I'm used to having it. So next, we'll install the spindle pulley assembly. And there are 2 bearings that need to slide into 2 bores. So we need to make sure it bottoms out. That bottom bearing will bottom out inside the head casting. So we'll just tap it, and that is the correct position. Next, we'll install the machine screw, and this is what locks the spindle pulley assembly inside the head casting. If you've got any questions about what that machine screw does, you can check out the video that I have on internal operations, and I'll post a link for it here. And And once we've got that tightened down, we're good to hook. Make sure that the spindle pulley is captured inside the head. Next, we'll install the feed return spring. It has a double loop on both ends, and the part that's going inside the drill press is going to hook over a roll pin. Next, we've got the pinion and hub, and the pinion needs to completely slide into the hub. Occasionally, they don't want to slide all the way in there, so we'll give it a little tap with the mallet, get it to fully seat. There are holes inside the pinion and the hub that all need to line up. So I'm sticking a punch in there to make sure that they do line up. Also, there is a fiber washer that needs to be on that pinion. And then we'll slide that inside the head casting. Now, I did already lube the pinion. That wasn't caught on video, but yeah. Next, we're going to use a pick from this side and kind of hook those double loops that are on the spring and push them towards the camera, and then stick a 1/4 inch punch in from the back side that captures those loops. And now we've got the spring captured with that. So then we will install the pin on the opposite side and use it to push the punch out. And there are splines on one end of that pin. And you need to make sure the splines are facing away from the hub as you install it. I've got a video that documents this process a little bit better and covers everything you need to know about the feed return spring. And I'll put a link for it here. And then once we've got that pin fully seated, we should be able to pull out on the hub and feel that tension on the spring. Next, we're going to go ahead and lubricate the spindle and quill assembly. We'll lubricate the splines and then the quill and the gear rack on the quill. And this super lube you can get online, obviously, off of Amazon or whatever, but I normally get it from Ace Hardware. I don't think they've got it at many of the box stores, the big box stores, but they might. I've been using it for years. It's an outstanding lubricant. So we kind of breezed through it earlier, but make sure you've got that quill washer and the quill gasket on there before you insert the spindle and quill assembly into the head. And as it starts to go up, it's going to catch on the pinion, so you need to pull out on the hub. And then rotate the spindle pulley assembly a little bit to allow the splines on the spindle to engage. And then it should just slide up in there. This one was kind of stiff. I think there might be some paint on one of the bores, but once we've got it in there, we can move it up and down a little bit, and then it should slide no problem. And then rotate the quill as you need to get the pinion to engage the gear rack. That gear rack should be facing the column. And then once you've got it moving freely, then we'll go ahead and install the quill lock. So it's just like the table lock and the head lock, except it's a little smaller. And the screw that goes in there has got a hex head on it that's got a channel in it, and you've got a chrome handle that mounts to that screw head. And it's got a little bitty set screw that rides inside that channel and locks the chrome handle in place. So again, each one of those cylinders for the locks have flats on them, and those need to face towards the quill so that they can engage the quill. And I think I held off on installing the chrome handle part until later, and I don't think I got that on video, but it's pretty simple, so no big deal. Here we have the different components for the feed stop collar. There's a spring that goes inside the bottom, and then the top part screws into the bottom. That's the fine adjustment. And then there's a little brass handle screw that goes inside the top, and that locks the collar to the feed stop rod, which is laying on the table below my hands right now. So next we'll install that feed stop rod, and we have not locked down the feed stop bracket yet. So the feed stop rod has a nut that goes on the bottom of it. And then we're going to raise the quill up. And then push back up on that feed stop bracket, lock all that in place. And because I didn't put the handle on the quill lock, I can't really get it tight enough by hand, so I'm going to have to grab a wrench here and tighten it down. And just make sure everything is pushed up as far as it'll go, the quill and the feed stop bracket, and then we'll lock the bracket in place. It's got a long screw in it that then has a lock washer and a nut on the back side, so we're just tightening down that nut. And if you have to, you can shift the feed stop bracket a little bit towards you or away from you so that the feed stop rod is perfectly aligned with those two protrusions that it rides in on the head casting. Then we'll make sure that we've got the feed stop rod perpendicular and then tighten it down. And then we'll loosen that quill lock and let the entire quill fall down, and then we can install the feed stop collar on top of the feed stop rod. And then we should make sure that the feed stop rod and the quill and everything is moving without binding up anywhere. And then we're going to set the tension. And for that, we're just going to pull out on the hub while holding the chuck and rotating the hub towards us and letting it re-engage on the pinion and the gear rack on the quill. And that's how the tension is set. So you want it to be kind of snappy. And then we'll install the feed handle rods. And there are 3 of those. And I like to have one at kind of 90 degrees, so that's pretty close right there. That's about the springiness that we want. All right. Again, I've got that video that I linked earlier on how to do all the tensioning and whatnot. Here we're just installing the wire clamp. On the parts diagram, it's called the capacitor clamp for some unknown reason. But, yeah, it's to hold that power cord. next to the head. Here we have the hinge plate for the motor mount. We're just going to lube up the shaft of it, and then we will install it into the head. I really like the motor mount design on this drill press. It's different than all the generations before and after. And I think it's probably the best of all of the motor mounts on the Craftsman drill presses. It's got a lot of flexibility so that you can properly align that motor pulley inside the belt cover. So obviously in a drill press like the 100s and the 150s, you just need to be able to pull the motor away from the drill press to tension the belts. But when you've got a cover, you've got to be able to not only pull it away from the drill press, but move it left and right so that it sits in the center of the cover. So here we're just installing that lock screw for the hinge plate. We're not going to tighten it down. We're going to leave it loose. And then we're going to install the motor. So the motor is already mounted to the motor mounting bracket, and you've got a rubber washer and then the pin that has an E-clip on the top of it that connects the motor mount to the hinge plate. There are holes that it just aligns with, if you can get them aligned. Like that. And that's how all of that works. So we need to reverse this pulley because I installed it upside down. The motor pulley needs to be opposite the spindle pulley. So we just need to flip it over, and that keyway fell, and we'll just put it back inside the shaft and then install that pulley. And there we go. Now we're not going to tighten it down right now because we need to lower the motor. So if you notice, the motor is all the way at its highest point on that motor mount. So we're going to loosen all these nuts and we're going to put it at its lowest point. And then we're going to make sure that the pulley is level. It should be, because all of those holes or the screws for the motor are sitting at their bottom point, I guess. Then we're going to use a level and we're going to raise the pulley up until we are level. And then we will tighten the pulley down. It's got that set screw in there and it just locks it in place. So once we got all that level, then we can install the belt. I like using these cogged belts. I think they move better and they're more silent. And then the way that we tension the belt is we stand in front of the drill press and push the motor to the rear and make sure that it's in line with the front of the drill press. There should be a straight line there. Once we've got that, then we can go ahead and lock down the hinge plate with that screw that's on the right side. And then we can add the tension adjustment rod. So I've got a rubber cap that I'm putting on there. I think these are vacuum caps. I just bought a pack of them off of Amazon. Then we'll slide the rod inside the mount, rotate it into place, and then it pushes on the motor mount which applies the tension to the belt. So there's a screw on there that we lock the rod in place with. If you did all this correct, then the rear motor pulley should be in line with the front pulley. So we'll go ahead and plug in the motor, and then we're going to test the drill press. So we'll test that lamp. It works. And we'll test the motor. Everything seems to be rocking like it's supposed to. All right. So next we'll install the front trim panel, and this actually isn't the one that I cleaned up in the previous videos. This is a different one. I mean, they're exactly the same, but this one's much cleaner. And since I'm keeping this drill press, I wanted to put a better one on there. It's got 2 screws that hold it in place. Now, if you're wondering why the spindle is really sticking out more than on a 100 or a 150 out of that spindle pulley assembly on top, it's because the spindle for the Gen 2 is longer than the spindle on a 100 or a 150. So we'll install the belt cover now. And it's got little bitty wings that stick out from the guard plate that it sits on. And then we'll align the holes that are up near the front. And then I'm going to install the shaft that I fabricated. This is a pivot shaft. And I had to open up those holes a little bit more so that that shaft would slide through there, but no big deal. Then we're going to install plastic washers on both sides and then thumb screws. And that rod wants to turn instead of letting the thumb screw on the other side there engage it. So I'm going to grab it with a pair of pliers and hold the rod while I tighten the thumb screw down. There we go. And we'll just make sure that it operates like it's supposed to. So I think I've got the pulley a little bit towards the right side, but it's still not scraping on the inside of the belt cover, so it's good enough. And I'm test run it to make sure it's not scraping. So this is where we started, obviously. This was the Gen 2 that I picked up. And you can see how dirty it is. So this video was shot from part 1 of this series, and here I talked about a lot of the changes that were made with the Gen 2s versus all the previous models. But gives you an opportunity to see just how grimy so many of these parts were. talking about that motor mount and hinge plate. How to adjust the tension. Really a cool design. I mean, there's so much I love about the Gen 2 drill press. And that's why I decided to rebuild another one just so I could have it. Look at that column and that table. Ugh. Yeah. That drill press definitely needed to be cleaned up. But it was pretty much complete, so that's a good thing. I've seen several of these out in the wild, and I've got one in my basement right now that does not have the belt cover. So I guess it was kind of a thing. A lot of people just removed the belt covers on them. But, yep. And this is the finished drill press. I had a lot of fun working on this, and I love this drill press. It is just, it's an awesome machine. It may not have the swagger of the Art Deco style of the Gen or the 100 series and the 150 series, but it's got its own personality. This means that I have one of every one of the models of Craftsman drill presses except for the Gen 3 now. So eventually I will get a Gen 3 as well. But I'm really happy with how this turned out. It's a great drill press and it looks amazing. I really dig that see-through cap on the belt cover. So that's going to wrap up this video and this series. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe. Don't forget about the stuff that's linked in the description of the video below. And the next video I'm going to do is one on the Supreme Chuck, and then we'll see what's happening after that. As always, I appreciate the support, and I will see you guys next time.